Today's talk is called The American Pope Restoring the American Order. Pope Leo XIV is currently traveling in Africa. As far as I know, he's been to Algeria and to Cameroon, and he is probably going to other locations in Africa. But what he's been saying is fabulous. And so I want to go over that with you here today. Crux News reports a speech that he gave, or a talk, or comments that he gave after leaving Algeria and flying to Yaoundé in Cameroon. And the report talks about how he visited sacred sites in Algeria to include Annaba, whereas the Basilica of St. Augustine. St. Augustine was the founder of the order of which he is a member. I believe he was also the head of that order. And he also visited Algeria's Grand Mosque. And in regard to that mosque, you may have seen some of the photos of that visit. In regard to that visit, rather, he said, quote, although we have different beliefs, we have different ways of worshiping, different ways of living. We can live together in peace. I think that to promote that kind of image is something which the world needs to hear today, and that together we can continue to offer in our witness as we continue on this apostolic voyage, end of quote. This is America. Different people live together. This is what we brought to the world and continue to bring to the world to some degree, despite the Trump regime, which is Russian or Russian fascist. But we are bringing to the world, America has brought to the world, America's promise is people live together in peace. Different religions live together. We've done that in this country. Sectarianism is something we don't like, we don't want. It's not that it is not something that is part of American fabric. And so what you're seeing here with the Pope is this call to the American order. And I might also add, too, it's the call of the essence of Vatican II. I mean, we could call this talk today that I'm giving the American Pope Restoring the American Order and the Essence of Vatican II, because Vatican II is about cooperating with people, getting along with people, working together, living in peace, and working towards common goals. And that's also what America is about. America's always been about that. And people who got into the racist or the sectarian points of view that try to divide that unity, break up that unity, were doing bad things, and they always lost. They eventually lost. So this is America. This is Vatican II. This is what we're hearing. We're hearing the essence of America, the essence of Vatican II being spoken here by the Pope. Well, it goes on. The Associated Press and a publication called Metro out of the UK reported on, I believe it was 2 speeches he gave in Cameroon, and that was on April the 15th. In one speech, he endorsed or reaffirmed yet again America as the model of social order. He confirmed that the work of the American founders were righteous by what he said. And he did that by confirming the centrality of the issue of governance in society as being one of serving people. And he did that, in turn, by decrying tyranny, by mentioning tyranny, by condemning tyranny. He reinforced the essence of America, which is revolt against tyranny, overturning tyranny, doing away with tyranny, not living in tyranny. Because tyranny has plagued humanity for centuries, and it still does, and it's making a resurgence. And it's making a resurgence in the post-liberal, the integralist point of view, and other points of view. So what did Leo say? He said, quote, according to the article, quote, the world was being ravaged by a handful of tyrants, yet it is held together by a multitude of supportive brothers and sisters. That's from the Metro article. What's tyranny? I've told you that before. We've talked about it before. It's when the rulers destroy the state. They plunder the country for their own benefit. It's treason, serving a foreign power, warring on their own people, basically not serving the people. That's the situation that America had in 1776 and for the years before then. A small group of English tyrants who were basically landowners simply crushed the Americans. They forbade manufacturing, limited the availability of hard cash, and then when it got to the Tea Act, they basically destroyed all the intermediate businesses the Americans had, and destroyed the economic structures, or started to destroy the economic structures in America, and the Americans knew that. So this was a tyranny that was destroying people who should be benefited by the government. And the British government under King George was a tyranny because it destroyed the American colonists for the benefits of just a few people. And that repeats itself all throughout history, and there's a lot of evidence it's repeating itself right now under Trump. So when he talks about tyranny, he is reaffirming the centrality of the American order and of the rightness of America. So who are the tyrants? Well, they're Putin, they're Xi, they're Trump, they're others. There's a global tyranny that I've talked to you about. They use international networks like we saw in Hungary. And if you've been watching the news and social media, there's a lot of information coming out now about these international networks that are funded by private concerns and funded by the Russians, that are going out there to advance fascism, post-liberalism, tyrannical systems of government. Look. It's tyranny versus freedom. Now, tyranny comes in two types, left and right. Okay, and what you have a lot of times, you have guys on the right, who are really fascists, and they're saying, "Oh, watch out for the communists," but they're fascists, and they claim to adhere to tradition and so on and so forth, but they're fascists. Okay, so who are the supportive brothers and sisters that the Pope was talking about here? Because remember, he says the world is being ravaged by a handful of tyrants. Okay, that's Putin and Xi and others, and yet it's held together by a multitude of supportive brothers and sisters. So who are the supportive brothers and sisters? Well, Prime Minister Carney, President Zelensky. He just received the Four Freedoms Award in Holland. The Four Freedoms Award, of course, is named after the Four Freedoms, which FDR announced on January 6, 1941: freedom from fear, freedom from want, freedom of speech and expression, and freedom to worship. These are basic, solid, good, moral principles and ideas. And America helped to spread this throughout the world in all we've done. And with our various programs, we were able to do that. And the church realized that. And the church was able to benefit from that, as were all the peoples of the world, and as America has been too. So who else are the supportive brothers and sisters? Well, countless lawyers, others in private life, NGOs, people in government. The Democrats, their voice is starting to gain traction. They're starting to gain their voice here, and they're starting to lead the big counterpunch, against this wave of tyranny that's been rushing over the world for a while. Okay, so Leo went on to say, "Blessed are the peacemakers. Woe to those who manipulate religion and the very name of God for their own military, economic, and political gain, dragging that which is sacred into darkness and filth." That's also from the Metro article. And so what he's basically saying here is he's giving a critique, the neo-trads, the tyrants, the post-liberals, Trump, and Hegseth and others who are invoking the name of God, as well as the Islamic extremists that invoke the name of God, as well as Putin and the Russian Orthodox Church, which invokes the name of God to want to eliminate, to destroy Ukraine, to commit genocide in Ukraine. So all of these people he condemns. Now, the AP went on to say that, quoted the following from the Pope: "In order for peace and justice to prevail, the chains of corruption, which disfigure authority and strip it of its credibility, must be broken." That's, again, another form of tyranny. Hearts must be set free from an idolatrous thirst for profit. Wow. He goes on to say, young people and women have a commitment to education, mediation, and the rebuilding of the social fabric, which is unparalleled and serves to curb corruption and abuses of power. For this reason, too, their voice must be fully recognized in decision-making processes. Then he cites St. Augustine: "Those who rule serve those whom they seem to command, for they rule not from love of power, but from a sense of the duty they owe to others. From this perspective, serving one's country means dedicating oneself with a clear mind and an upright conscience to the common good of all people in the nation." What's he talking about here? He's talking about the American order. He's talking about people serving in government for the benefit of all people. That is in our intellectual DNA, it's in our history over and over again. He is talking against tyranny. We rejected tyranny 250 years ago. And in doing that, we provided a light to the peoples of the world, that they might rule themselves morally, justly, and in accordance with God's law. Tyranny is against God's law. The Pope is clearly speaking against tyranny. And he's clearly saying the American order, which rejected tyranny, is in accordance with God's law. So then the AP went on to say the Vatican has made clear that Catholic social teaching disapproves of the types of authoritarian leaders that Leo is encountering on his four-nation African visit. One commentator said the visit by Pope Leo feels like light entering a dark room. That's pretty powerful, like light entering a dark room, because Leo is going and talking to people about the purpose of government. The purpose of government is not to have tyrants. But this is what the post-liberals want. This is what the integralists want. This is what the neo-trads want. This is what Putin and Thiel want, and the populist nationalists. This is what Bannon wants, and all those little acolytes there, in the Catholic Church that run along with them. That's what Trump wants. That's what Kevin Roberts wants. They want tyranny so they can enrich themselves. That's what Leonard Leo wants, so he can enrich himself and give you religion and give you ethnicity, which is going to be used to control you, to coerce you to do things. And in America, we have freedom. And there you can persuade people and talk to people and discuss things with people, but people act out of right purpose, not out of fear. They have that opportunity. And oftentimes, I say most of the time, the vast majority of time, Americans act out of right purpose. So what else do we got here? So what's going on? Again, I'm just repeating myself. He's endorsing, supporting, legitimating the American order, the American world order, which rejects tyranny, which emphasizes peace, the person, the rule of law, the community of nations. These are ideas were spread by our programs to include the doctrinal warfare program, the ideological warfare program. These ideas were good ideas. They went out there and they helped the world. And they resonate. They resonate with the natural law. They provide a way for peace and unity. And the United States has shown that it works. And what you have with Vatican II is Vatican II has these same ideas, this idea of cooperation with people. And it says we can all get along and live together and work together for a common good. It's a similar idea that America has put out for the benefit of everybody. I think Bill Kristol really sums it up pretty well. He said, quote, the first Polish Pope helped liberate his country from authoritarian rule. He's talking about John Paul II. The first Polish Pope helped liberate his country from authoritarian rule. The Trumpists are worried the first American Pope could contribute to such a development here. The view Leo is upholding, that right matters, not just might, is an American one. He's right. Right is might. That's American. The Trumpists fear Pope Leo, not simply because he's defending the views and speaking to the communicants of his church. They fear him because he's defending the principles and speaking to the citizens of his country, of our country. End of quote. Bill Kristol's right. Leo is speaking to the American people and the people of the world, but he's speaking to the principles upon which we are based and have been based for so long, until Trump's regime, which is an aberration. Pope's an American. He's infused with the American essence. He's advancing this essence of Vatican II. And in doing that, he's advancing the American order around the world, in this country. He's advancing right order. The American order is right order. And it's in accordance with God's law. And I think what you're seeing with this Pope is a counterpunch, a big fight back against the tides of tyranny that are based on fear and anger, division, hatred, all the dark things in humanity. And you're seeing this Pope lead in a very important way the return of the world to the American order, to right order, to God's law. Thank you.